Can I just speak? Is that okay? I mean, I'll talk about it, but I just gotta sort of ease into it, you know? Because I was never like this major talker or anything. I like to keep things to myself. Some people call it private or whatever, but it's more like sort of being inward, right? I'm an inward sort of person. I think it depends a lot on the way you grow up, you know? Family and all. I just ended up more inward than anything. Anyway, I found a lot of times when you ask for stuff, or like, maybe have questions to things, there's not always an answer out there. I mean, you can ask over and over, but you don't all the time hear something back. Speaking of that, can you hear me okay? Right? Can ya? I guess so. It's interesting, you know, how things work out. Well, not out, I guess. Not so much as maybe through, right? Things get worked through. Or work themselves through. We probably don't have that much to do with it. We like to think we do though, right? Yeah. Like we're in on all the big planetary decisions and shit. You want to know what I feel? I think we're just spinning around out there. Completely out of whack, no way of ever getting it right again. I mean, back on track or whatever. See, we've been doing things wrong for so long that it just starts to feel okay after a while, like, this is how it ought to be. There's a Greek word for that. I learned it at school, he taught it to me. Well, I guess I more like heard it from him. If I learned it, I could tell you what it was, right? Yeah. I know it's Greek, though. I caught that much. I don't remember what it was. No. It's too long ago. It had something to do with the world. The whole thing coming off its axis or something. And it's the fault of the people, or mortals. That's what my teacher said. Mortals are to blame. You see, he said it was simply the fact that, and I could never understand this, maybe I just didn't listen good enough, that was the usual problem, but he said it all stemmed from our being mortal. So then, if all our problems are from being mortal, or human, that's what mortal means, and we are what we are, these mortals, then somehow it's like our fault. Explain me that. You know, a lot of times, I couldn't make clear what was coming out of his mouth. He was real smart though. Had like 2 college degrees and still wanted to work in a public school. I kind of admired that. I was in his class, one of them, his first year. It was great. He took us, my class anyway, on a bunch of stuff. Field trips, museums, and up to Chicago one time. That was fun. He took us, 25 or so of us, in the school bus, and I remember we were going along that road up there, it runs past the lake. God, it was beautiful. He looked back, my teacher did, sitting out by the driver, and saw all us kids smashed up against the window. Every one of us, with our faces just glued to that water. So, he got the driver to pull off at an exit, and we got 15 minutes or so to run around on the beach. This was November. Chase each other, throw rocks, whatever. All I did was just stand there. Stand down by the edge of the surf and watch the waves coming in. There in my little red windbreaker, and I don't know. I felt like an astronaut. Or a time flame explorer maybe, a scout or something, sent onto Earth to see what the fuck the fuss was all about and taking it all in for the first time. I still remember that. It kind of reminded me of that one moment in that movie with the guy and all the monkeys. He does those commercials for Planet of the Apes. That's the one. You know when he rides down to the beach and he realizes he's home after all and there's no going back. And he's screaming, like pounding his fists and everything. But he's like taken in by the awesomeness of what he's seeing. I mean, it was better than that. I thought, maybe because of my age at the time, but it was better. It reminded me of that a little though. It did. You know what's funny? He hit on me. My teacher did on one of those trips. Yeah. Not that one, though. This was at the Maritime Center a couple of months later. Scared the shit out of me. I mean, I didn't even know what he was doing at first. I mean, okay, I did, but I was like 13, and that's just not what you're expecting at that age. He came up behind me at the observation tanks, right, where they got the sharks and everything. See, this other teacher was with us, and she wanted to take the rest of the kids down the passageway, because they got a place where you can handle different sea stuff, like shells and crabs and stuff. And the shark tank had this dark room connected to it, so you could stand there and see without the glare all over the windows. And some of the kids were sort of scared, but I was always interested in sharks and all that. I was. You know you have to pick a career in 7th grade? They make you do that on this career day, right? I picked marine biologist. I did. Out of all of the other things they had there, I picked that one. Because I love the water. Always have. So my teacher said it would be okay if I stayed and watched, and we'd catch up later. I'm keeping my eye on this one big hammerhead. That's a species of shark. You probably knew that. And he's darting in real close to his glass, this hammerhead is. Suddenly I feel all this weight up against me. My teacher's pushing me forward and I can't move. He never said anything while it was happening, I mean, to me, anyway. I could hear him whispering something about tragic nobility of the sea creature, some shit like that. And all I can see, I can't turn at all, the way he's got me held there. All I can see is the shark, the one I've been watching, coming out of the muck and sweeping past me, again and again. And it's not until he's right on top of me and turned each time that I can see his eye. He turns past the glass and his eye just sort of rolls back all white as he passes. Fuck, that was scary. That feeling, he's weight on me and watching the shark just keep circling around. What the hell? It's easy to scare a kid, right? He wouldn't look at me after that. My teacher, not even a glance. And he was always real nice before and funny to me. I mean, not in a bad way, not like inappropriately so. But I wasn't even a teacher's pet or whatever. He was just sort of open with me. Jokes and showing me pictures in magazines. Like after that career day thing, he would hang up undersea stuff in class and bring in pieces of coral to look at. We were starting to be friends. At least, sort of friendly. Because it's hard, I think, for a teacher in a school like junior high where nobody cares. Kids just want to do sports and dances and hang out with their friends. So when you meet someone who's actually interested like I was, and I really was. I wasn't the smartest or remembered the most, like I said, but I genuinely wanted to learn. I felt like I needed to comprehend a little about the universe. I did. because it intrigues me, the way it works. Yeah. And I think a teacher can pick up on that, so he just responded to it. So we started to sort of hang out a bit, just at school, the library, looking at slides at the resource center lunch times. It was good. It was good, that's all. I mean, fuck, I was 13, okay? It was nice to have somebody to look at you and not say, pick up your socks. Something like that. Let's face it, 13's a pretty shitty age, right? He wouldn't look at me after that. Did give me a ride home, though, from school. He did do that. I mean, nothing. Not a look at me on the outing, sits away from me on the bus, but back at our building, see? He's responsible for us. And all the parents are there. This is a Friday. And my dad doesn't show. He doesn't show up. We go into the office, call his work, nothing at home, and he doesn't come. Half an hour goes by. We're sitting there on the curb, nobody at school there but us, and he doesn't come. Finally, he says to me, my teacher, he can drop me off if I want. He drove this late model Peugeot. I remember because I once asked him to teach me how to say it. It was kind of cream color Peugeot. And he said he'd drop me off if I'd like that. That's what he said. If you'd like that. In the car, like this was yesterday, I recall he had this woman singing on the tape player. Real soft and painful. I remember because I had to ask who it was. I mean, this was not the Bee Gees, and I've never heard anything like it. It's so fragile sounding, you know? He said it was Billie Holiday, and it's all he ever listened to. First thing he says to me, I mean, practically in 5 hours, Billie Holiday. And he smiled. It was dark out, but I could see him smiling there. We're sitting at a light, and he says, she's all I ever listened to. And then, you kind of remind me of her, you know? You always seem a little bit sad. Smiling, but sad. I like that. What the fuck did that mean? Because listen, you don't say stuff like that to a 13-year-old. You just don't. Because she'll be yours for life. I mean it. If you do, she will be. Not in front of my house, but down from it, a block maybe. There's this flower shop, and it's closed this time of the evening, so he parks in the little lot they have there. And he kissed me. God, he kissed me like... I guess you imagine how it must have been when they first invented it. Like, back in the days of myths and shit, you know, when the men are heroes, and you could get kissed like that, and you would wait a lifetime for him to return. You would. Because you could still taste him on your lips years later. That's what he kissed me like. I don't want to go into the, you know, cover all the relationship stuff a whole lot. Because, I mean, if you've spoken to him, you probably know it all already, right? Maybe more than you want to. We started seeing each other. That's what we began to do. As much as a 13-year-old and a high school teacher can see each other, we started doing that. And I know what you're thinking. All half-thought to each other, laughing and stuff, that it's all my own fault, or that he was like some type of molester or something, but you wouldn't be right about that. either side of that. We, liked each other, that's all. And would kiss and things. Not so much, just little kiss and hugs. I'd sneak into his classroom at lunchtime for just seconds sometimes, and we'd hug. And that's what we do. On my 14th birthday, it's in March. I'm a Pisces, the fish. How about that? Well, I guess it was the weekend off. The actual day fell on a Thursday, but that Saturday he picked me up at the library, the downtown branch, where I did this book sorting thing on a volunteer basis, because you get a bunch of privileges and stuff if you do it twice a month. But I told her, the volunteer coordinator, she was just a high school girl anyway, I told her I felt sick that day, and he picked me up and we went driving. I asked where, but he said it's a surprise. So I sat back in the old Peugeot. The sunroof was up. It was a real nice day out, and I just kind of drifted off to the sound of the wind rushing by. The wind and Billie Holiday singing sad in the back speakers. When we got to Chicago, he drove straight to the lake, to this pier where he'd rented a boat for us. Beautiful red speedboat. And God, it was so exciting for me, you know? He just kept doing things like that, and there's a picnic basket, and it was great. It was just great. I mean, to be out there on the water, on this boat with him, it was just real lovely. He gave me a bracelet. It was wrapped up in wax paper inside my sandwich. Yeah, you believe that? He hollowed out my bread and put my present inside there. I just love that. That was cute. And I got this beautiful picture book of several Greek stories, mostly Euripides, because you see, he felt Euripides was the most humanistic, had like the most humanity of all the Greek writers. He was the one who was at war with this, fuck, I can't remember that word. Anyway, he was the guy who was really angry about the world being all fucked up just because we happen to be mortals. Anyhow, it had a bunch of nice drawings, and he said I'd like it even more when I got older. I still have it. When I found out about the baby, that I was going to have one, it was late April, 23rd, I guess. And I didn't cry. I should have. I can kid myself, you know, but sometimes you can go along for years even and not feel like you've aged at all, and then there are other times when you age a ton in like a couple of seconds. So I found out and went straight to his place. I mean, called first, but went there and we discussed it all. Talked a long time. We talked, like I said, and he seemed, and this caught me, because I didn't know what he'd think, but he was all excited. Not yelling or all adult and shit. Said he loved children. Could think of nothing better than having a son or something. Said we'd have to be careful. I mean, we both understood the situation, but I promised him I wouldn't tell anybody who the father was. No matter if my dad got real shitty about it, and he did, believe me, or school or whatever. I promised I would keep our secret. We made a pledge together there on his sofa, and I kept it. He told me that day, he said he had to go away for a couple of weeks. He was finishing up a degree in Delphi, that's a university. And then he'd be back and we'd make some plans. That was hard. Because I was scared. I'm not going to pretend I wasn't, but getting his degree was a big thing. And could help us too, he said. So we talked and we kissed. God, you know, for being this big guy, he was real gentle to me. And then I went home. I went to my house with our baby inside me and watched Hogan's Heroes on TV. Like I did every afternoon. I mean, what else are you gonna do, right? I just need a little water. Okay, when I'd heard he'd left his position at school, this was by fluke anyway, I was in the general office during the summer, because it's not that far from my house, giving them a vaccination report on my brother, and the lady there, the secretary, said, "Oh, I heard about your arts and science teacher at Gardner, my school. We're sure sorry to lose him, aren't we?" I didn't hear much else, really. Just that she said, "Well, I'm sure they need good teachers in Phoenix as they do anywhere, right?" But I didn't ask for an address or anything. I didn't. Because I was standing there, in that office. Suddenly standing there, 14 years old, with a baby in me. And all I could make out was this woman yakking on about my brother needing a German measles booster and if I'd known if he had one yet. And I was frozen in time. It's like the heavens had opened up above me and all I could make out in my universe was this woman talking at me like I was her godchild. And all I could make out was the howl of the cosmos. And you know what? It was laughing. It was. It's like all its attention had suddenly turned on me and it was laughing. Laughing down at me. Like I said before, there's a bunch of shit you don't need to hear twice, so, I don't want your sympathy. Okay. So, we'll skip the hardship stuff about when I did tell my family, being pulled out of school, moved to my aunt's house. Sound familiar? And like I told you before, or if I didn't, I meant to, this story's nothing special. I mean, the only part of any interest is that it happened to me, right? So, Billy, that's my son, Billy, William, whatever, was born, and he's great. And although every mom goes off on that, I mean it. He's just great. And without getting all shitty about it, I give birth and a bunch of years pass. I did eventually make contact with his father. Sent a couple of letters. He wrote me back straight away. This was a year, 18 months later, just long enough to make you wonder, you know? I was still only about 16 at the time, so I guess he was still pretty scared about the whole thing. That's what he said on paper, anyway. And asked if I could understand. Not forgive. Understand. I let him know this wasn't like some money thing and our pact was still safe. I just wanted him to have, if he wouldn't mind so much, a kind of relationship with Billy, for the mail or whatnot. I knew there was nothing left for us, I mean, you know, not after that. But I'd send pictures, and we ended up doing it through a postal box. That's how it happened. A few packages now and again, and he had a son. His son's mother loved him and kept the secret all the while the father was away. And I know you think I'm talking shit right now, but honestly, if I closed my eyes and thought about it, I could still taste his kiss on my lips. Even then. The rest you know. On his 14th birthday, Billy and me, we rented a car. We were living out in Utah by then, out with some relatives. And we drove to Arizona to meet his father. We planned this, the two of us, by letter. And said it would just be this one time. He was, you know, married. Married and teaching in Phoenix. No kids though. Isn't that funny? No kids, because his wife had part of a uterus or something, I guess, that wouldn't work properly. But they didn't adopt or anything, just kept trying naturally over and over. I thought that was the only real sad part to all this. So it'd just be this one time, at a motel he'd picked in town. The one time we'd sit down and see each other again. I mean, at least the two of us. Again. You know, this thing's almost run out. So, we meet at the room. It's a terribly hot day. At least for December it was. That's how I remember it. We'd driven straight through, but he was there. As promised. Hardly seemed any older, which kind of sucked, I thought. Because, I mean, I changed. I mean, look at me, right? And it's this big moment for Billy. He's all excited, and we even hugged. It was in that second, as he reached in to kiss my cheek, his face turned toward me, and maybe it was just the light, the sunlight coming in through the room, but I saw something there in his eyes. He loved this boy. All that shit he said to me years ago, it was true about kids. He loved them. But also, he was satisfied. I could see that satisfaction on his face, because he'd gotten away with it. That's what I saw shining in his eyes as he leaned in to kiss my cheek. He'd beaten fate. Gotten away with it. After dinner, well, we had some store-bought chicken in the room. Billy got a couple of packages. One was a book of myths. Imagine that. He said he wanted to see us again before we left. He had to go back to school for an hour or so. Science fair, I guess. But he said he'd be right back. He promised he'd be right back. The last time I saw him there at the door, he mentioned that word again, that, he said it and smiled. As he stepped out to the balcony, he smiled at me and he whispered, "Maybe it's not our fault after all. I mean, we're just human, right?" Billy was already in the bathroom. We'd driven straight through and I could hear the water running, so I knew he was in his bath. He loved the tub. Since he was tiny, he just loved it. So I knew he was in there. The water filling up around him, and Lady Day. That's what he called Billie Holiday. That was a nickname. He called her that. Playing on his tape player. stormy weather. I went into the room, the bathroom, and could see him there through a little opening in the lining he pulled shut. Eyes closed and steam coming up. He didn't really struggle. Couldn't actually. The shock of it, I suppose, when the recorder first hit the water. There was only a quick kind of snapping sound, like the pop of a flashbulb or whatnot, and then a softer sound of him, Billy, as he kicked in the water for a second or two. I turned the taps off a little later. After I just sat there on the linoleum and watched him, as he lay there in a cloudy pool of bath water, eyes open and so still. I thought I could almost see. I mean, if I squinted, I could almost make out. Adakia! That's the word! The one I was trying to, that's it! That's it! The world out of balance. I knew it'd come to me if I waited long enough. I was, picked up in Vegas, the restaurant. You're aware of that, though, obviously. And, brought back here, so now you know, I mean, it's what you wanted, right? Yes, I planned it. Maybe a little longer than you thought, though, huh? And yes, I worry about what's going to happen to me and all. It's natural, though, right? To wonder about things. I tell you what gets me through today. The next hour. It's him. My teacher. I can almost see him, I can. Down there in Phoenix. He's at a playground. At school. On a Saturday. And he's just stumbling near the monkey bars. Can't be consoled. The truth all spilled out now like it is. And all these tears screaming up at the sky, and these torrents of tears as he screams to the universe, why? Why? But you want to know what? In my fantasy, there's never an answer. There never is.